Have you ever wondered how psychology and philosophy are connected? One focuses on the mind and behavior, while the other focuses on wisdom, reality, and meaning. But the truth is, psychology was born out of philosophy. For centuries, philosophers were the first psychologists. Today, we'll explore how the two are deeply connected, where they overlap, and why both are essential to understanding human life. Before there were labs, before there were scientific journals, before the word psychology even existed as we know it, there were questions. Deep, fundamental questions about what it means to be human. For thousands of years, the task of answering these questions fell not to scientists, but to philosophers. This is where our story begins, in the cradle of Western thought, ancient Greece, where philosophy acted as the mother of psychology. Imagine the great philosopher Plato, walking through the bustling agora of Athens. He wasn't just pondering politics. He was wrestling with the nature of reality itself. He asked, how do we know what is real? Is the world we see with our senses the true world, or just a pale imitation of something greater? This led to his famous theory of forms. Plato proposed that for everything we see in our physical world, a chair, a tree, the concept of justice, there exists a perfect, eternal, and unchanging form in an abstract realm. Our reality, he argued, is like shadows dancing on a cave wall, mere reflections of these perfect forms. This wasn't just abstract musing. It was one of history's first stabs at cognitive theory. He was essentially asking, how does our mind grasp concepts? How do we perceive and categorize our world? Plato believed we are born with an innate understanding of these forms, an idea that echoes centuries later in the psychological debate of nativism, the idea that certain skills or abilities are native or hardwired into the brain at birth. Plato's own student, Aristotle, took a dramatically different path. While Plato looked to the heavens and a world of abstract forms, Aristotle got his hands dirty. He was an empiricist at heart, believing that knowledge is built from the ground up through observation and experience. He dissected animals, cataloged plants, and meticulously observed human behavior. For Aristotle, the soul, or psyche in Greek, the very root of our word psychology, was not a separate entity trapped in a body. Instead, he described it as the form of the body, the essential principle that makes a living thing alive and defines its functions. He even proposed a hierarchy: the vegetative soul for plants, growth and nutrition; the sensitive soul for animals, sensation and movement; and the rational soul for humans, thought and reflection. This was a pioneering attempt to classify life and consciousness, laying the groundwork for everything from developmental psychology to the biological basis of behavior. Let's jump forward nearly 2,000 years to the 17th century to a thinker who would irrevocably shape the course of our story, René Descartes. In a world shifting towards scientific inquiry, Descartes famously declared, "Cogito ergo sum," I think therefore I am. With this single phrase, he placed consciousness at the very center of human existence. But he also created a profound puzzle. Descartes proposed what we now call mind-body dualism. He argued that the mind, the thinking, non-physical substance, and the body, the physical, mechanical substance, were two completely distinct things. The body was a machine, but the mind was an ethereal, conscious ghost operating it. He even pinpointed the pineal gland in the brain as the principal seat of the soul, the place where mind and body interacted. This idea, while now largely rejected by science, ignited a debate that rages to this day: the mind-body problem. How does our subjective consciousness arise from the physical matter of our brain? It's a question at the heart of modern neuroscience and artificial intelligence. So, from Plato's shadows on the wall, to Aristotle's study of the natural world, to Descartes' ghost in the machine, philosophy provided the essential questions and the initial frameworks. It was the launchpad for psychology. But these were arguments built on logic and reason alone. To truly understand the human mind, we needed more than just thought experiments. We needed data. We needed evidence. We needed a method. The stage was set for a revolution. Psychology was about to leave the philosopher's armchair and step into the laboratory, ready to become a science in its own right. In the late 1800s, Wilhelm Wundt created the first psychology lab. Difference: philosophy =, rational speculation. Psychology =, empirical observation plus experiment. But psychology didn't abandon philosophy. It simply gave tools to test philosophical questions. Let's dive into some of the biggest questions humanity has ever asked. Questions that were once the exclusive domain of philosophy, but which psychology has taken into the lab. First up, free will versus determinism. For centuries, philosophers have debated this. Are you the true author of your actions, freely choosing your path at every turn? Or is every choice you make the inevitable result of a long chain of cause and effect, stretching back to the beginning of time? Is your feeling of control just an illusion? Psychology entered the fray not with arguments, but with experiments. In the 1980s, neuroscientist Benjamin Libet conducted a landmark study. He asked participants to flick their wrist whenever they felt the urge, while he monitored their brain activity. The shocking discovery? A specific brain signal, the readiness potential, appeared a fraction of a second the person consciously decided to move. This suggested that the brain had already initiated the action before the mind was even aware of it. While the interpretation of Libet's work is still hotly debated, it opened the floodgates. Modern neuroscience and cognitive psychology continue to explore how our decisions are shaped by unconscious biases, environmental cues, and our brain's own internal wiring. The question is no longer just philosophical. It's a tangible, measurable scientific inquiry into the mechanics of choice. Next, we have the classic mind-body problem. The 17th century philosopher René Descartes famously argued for dualism. The idea that the mind is a non-physical spiritual entity, separate from the physical machinery of the body and brain. Your thoughts, feelings, and consciousness were part of an immaterial soul. But if that's true, how does this non-physical mind interact with the physical body? How does a feeling of sadness and immaterial thought cause physical tears to fall? Psychology and neuroscience offer a compelling, if less mystical, answer. They operate largely from a materialist standpoint. The mind is what the brain does. The evidence is overwhelming. Consider the famous case of Phineas Gage, a railroad worker who survived having an iron rod blown through his frontal lobe. He lived, but his personality changed completely, from a responsible, well-liked man to someone impulsive and unreliable. His mind was altered because his brain was altered. Today, we can see this connection in real time with brain imaging. We can also influence the mind by influencing the brain with medication. By studying the brain, cognition, and mental health, psychology has effectively reframed the question. It's no longer about the mind and body are connected, but this intricate, astonishingly complex biological system gives rise to our conscious experience. Then there's the age-old debate: nature versus nurture. Are we products of our innate biology, our genes, or are we shaped by our environment, our upbringing, and our experiences? Philosophers like John Locke proposed we are born as a tabula rasa, a blank slate, upon which experience writes our story. Others believed we are born with innate ideas and predispositions. Psychology provided the tools to actually test this. The most powerful tool has been the twin study. By comparing identical twins who share 100% of their genes with fraternal twins who share about 50%, researchers can estimate the heritability of traits. Studies of identical twins separated at birth and raised in different environments are particularly revealing, showing uncanny similarities in personality, habits, and even life choices, providing strong evidence for the power of genetics. But no psychologist today would say it's one or the other. The modern understanding is that it's a complex interplay. Nature and nurture are not opposing forces, but dance partners. Your genes might give you a predisposition for musical talent, but without access to an instrument and years of practice, that potential may never be realized. Psychology has moved the conversation from versus to and, exploring the intricate ways our biology and our world interact to make us who we are. Finally, let's consider ethics and morality. Philosophers have long sought the foundations of right and wrong. Is good an objective truth we can discover through reason, as Immanuel Kant argued? Or is it about maximizing happiness for the greatest number of people, as the utilitarians proposed? Where does our moral compass come from? Psychology shifted the focus from what morality be to how it actually in humans. Pioneers like Jean Piaget and Lawrence Kohlberg observed children and proposed stage theories of moral development. They argued that our moral reasoning evolves, moving from a self-interested focus on rewards and punishments in childhood to a more sophisticated understanding of social contracts and abstract ethical principles in adulthood. More recent research in moral psychology suggests our moral judgments are often less about rational deliberation and more about quick, emotional gut feelings. We have an instant, intuitive reaction, that's wrong, and our rational brain then scrambles to construct a justification for that feeling. By studying moral intuitions, developmental stages, and the brain's response to ethical dilemmas, psychology isn't telling us what's right or wrong, but it's revealing the hidden architecture of our moral minds. In each of these areas, psychology didn't necessarily solve the ancient philosophical riddles. Instead, it transformed them. It took these profound questions out of the realm of pure abstraction and brought them into the laboratory, making them testable, measurable, and observable. From the mechanics of choice to the nature of consciousness, from the dance of genes and environment to the roots of our moral judgments, philosophy asked the foundational questions, and psychology developed the empirical tools to seek the answers. It gave us a new way to study the timeless mystery of what it means to be human. Existential philosophy, Sartre, Kierkegaard, Nietzsche, inspired existential psychology, Frankl's logotherapy. Phenomenology influenced humanistic psychology, Carl Rogers. Eastern philosophy, mindfulness in psychology, meditation for mental health. Ethics in research, philosophical grounding for psychological experiments. Philosophy gives meaning, psychology gives method. Both are needed. Philosophy helps us ask why. Psychology helps us answer how. Example, happiness. Philosophy asks, what is a good life? Psychology studies what habits make us happy. So, as we've journeyed together, it's clear that psychology and philosophy are like two sides of the same coin, bound in a quest to understand the human experience. Philosophy began the conversation, asking the monumental why questions. Why are we here? What is a good life? What is the nature of the mind? For centuries, these questions, born from introspection and debate, laid the foundational blueprint for our understanding of ourselves. Then came psychology, the younger, empirical sibling, asking how. How do our brains create consciousness? How do our experiences shape us? If philosophy is the architect who dreams up the cathedral of human understanding, psychology is the engineer who tests the materials to ensure the structure stands. One gives us the wisdom of questions, the profound framing of the problem. The other, the evidence of answers, the data-driven pursuit of what is true. You truly need both. Today, this partnership is more vibrant than ever. We see it in moral psychology, where philosophical dilemmas are tested in experiments, revealing the biases that influence our choices. We see it in the philosophy of mind, working with neuroscience to unravel consciousness. A powerful example is the dialogue between ancient virtue ethics and modern positive psychology. Philosophers like Aristotle theorized about eudaimonia, or human flourishing. Now, psychologists empirically study the components of that flourishing: gratitude, resilience, purpose, and develop interventions to help people achieve it. Ancient wisdom is being validated by scientific rigor. Ultimately, this powerful duo helps us understand not just the abstract human mind, but the deeply personal reality of the human condition. They give us a richer toolkit for navigating our own lives. Philosophy offers the frameworks for meaning, while psychology provides the practical strategies to overcome the mental hurdles, the anxiety, the self-doubt that keep us from living by those values. It's the ultimate collaboration for personal growth. This exploration is a conversation that has spanned millennia, and it continues with you. If this deep dive sparked your curiosity, please like, share, and subscribe to join our community of thinkers. The conversation truly comes alive in the comments. What was your biggest takeaway? Let me know if you want a part 2 connecting psychology with other great traditions. We could explore the psychology in Indian philosophy, Or the links between Buddhist concepts of no self and modern neuroscience, or even Taoist parallels with flow and acceptance. The possibilities are endless. Until then, keep questioning, keep exploring, and never stop trying to understand the most fascinating subject in the universe: ourselves.